Meditation, usually my sanctuary, recently became a source of frustration. One day, as I struggled to silence my mind, I realized I was instinctively seeking the path of least resistance, a comfort zone that was making my stress worse instead of better. This insight sparked a deeper question. How often do we unknowingly confuse self-love with simply avoiding discomfort? I caught myself chain-dodging this discomfort, searching for quick escapes in old techniques, and trying to perpetually dodge the stress and unease from shallow breaths. This was a stark contrast to my usual push-too-hard approach. My aim, I realized, was simply to not feel pain. There is nothing inherently wrong with this method. It speaks to one half of self-love, namely actively trying to make things better. Yet I was neglecting the other half, namely accepting my present state as not needing to be fixed. Both need to be applied simultaneously. Yet this experience proved that even an imperfect solution is better than none. In my search for a better solution, even an old meditation technique that might work, I remembered one I actually made up myself 10 years ago. It was simply a technique where one's meditation involves facing everything. It's a straightforward focus. Just target the most pain that you have inside and be with that. I remember sharing the idea of it in a group meditation, but I myself ended up forgetting this method quickly, barely using it at all. It wasn't because it was ineffective. That was the thing I noticed right after remembering this technique again and trying it, to see it actually gave instant relief. My mindset had been in constant flight mode up till this. I had only been walking the path of least resistance here. I kept practicing this method and carried it even beyond meditation, trying it while reading, because reading is something I can't do if I'm even slightly stressed, because then that will make it even worse. Instead of giving in to the discomfort and trying to escape it, mentally or physically, I shifted my mindset 180 degrees and faced it directly. The mental friction that usually made me give up dissolved, and I found myself effortlessly absorbing the material. It worked. I had found something here. Even I, the overly disciplined guy often himself, was unknowingly stuck in a path of least resistance imbalance. But that's another thing. You can be balanced in many areas, without it meaning you being nearly as balanced in other areas of existence. And that said, I have a key for tracking this. Whenever I think black or white in something, it's 100% chance that I have an imbalance there. So by leaning into fearlessness and embracing a more heroic approach in things like meditation, reading, or even considering new tasks, I noticed something crucial. The path of most resistance revealed itself as an equally valid and sometimes surprisingly pure pursuit, much like the path of least resistance, which can feel pure when life's purpose is framed as happiness. You know how relaxing can feel like life's purpose sometimes, but working can too, and this new sense made it more obvious. I felt a bit more balanced, as a man who shies away from nothing that requires courage, and wonder if this could be the path. A rookie mistake to believe that I could simplify everything into a single absolute, but cute and useful to move forward to. I started to remember people and movements who have their whole lives driven on the notion of face your fears, no pain, no gain, hustle, go hard or go home, ass to the grass, maybe not that one, etc. And that's where people are tipped all over to the other side of the scale of possible imbalance. If I were to adopt this path and these mantras exclusively, I'd risked seeking unnecessary fears and pains. More importantly, I would miss the truth of my inner compass, the true master that blends the two extreme mindsets, the path of least and the path of most resistance. The path of least resistance. Let's first examine the path of least resistance in a standalone approach. I am annoyed with this for a reason. I've been there myself, and I've seen friends repeatedly suffer. Appointments planned and confirmed, then suddenly cancelled because it didn't feel perfectly right at that moment. I respect instinct, but often that gut feeling was just nervousness and discomfort, masked as the activity being wrong. The path of least resistance is amazing for self-love, in a way, because it implies you're giving yourself the opportunity to enjoy life, doing only what you want, and following the flow of ease, because your joy and passion are arguably the best inner compasses that you can follow. Often what comes naturally for you feels easy. If you're not aware of the upside of the path of least resistance, you might dismiss this as something not worth doing, simply because it's not hard enough or have enough growth for you in it. For example, someone might be really good at speaking, and that comes naturally to him or her, but struggling with writing and believes he needs to be a writer because he thinks all that's good is hard. There are many more examples of upsides, but they fall short if they're not balanced with the other side of the coin, the grittier one, the path of most resistance. But the problem of being all in on the path of most resistance is as big as its opposite. This dualistic trap has the risk of you working tirelessly for something you don't even truly want, disconnected from your inner authority or passions. It is living in the future, so to say, neglecting the present. I talk a bit more about that in my last video. I will have a link in the description at least, or I will learn to put it on the screen. We will see. Consider myself and the people I've known who prioritized comfort over showing up for something. We managed just fine until the moment required a little effort. As soon as something gets a little hard, we're still in the path of least resistance mode, and confuse the moments of truth with being a signal of that the activity is wrong. And this is where we need to balance the good flowy lifestyle with some grit. Put on your best self and make it happen. A correct gut feeling is often followed by contradictory feelings and thoughts of fear. And these fears say the complete opposite to your inner truth, especially just after your reactive fear system kicks in, led by your intellect. And therefore, often it takes some courage to follow through on something that you've decided on. If we're not aware of the benefits of the path of most resistance, we might miss out on most of the good opportunities that we attract and create by being true to our insides, because we fail to differentiate the signals of doubt, mistaking fear for misalignment. So a tip for distinguishing is true intuitive no's often feel clear and calm, even when stating a difficult truth. They guide. Reactive fear, however, is often loud, frantic, riddled with what-if scenarios, and seeks to paralyze. Learning to discern these is a cornerstone of balanced resistance. This way of being stuck in dualism holds the risk of working so hard for something you don't even truly want. You risk having literally no contact with your inner authority or your true desires or passions. I've had my fair share of being too disciplined. Long story short, it often led to a profound disconnect. I'd achieve external goals, but my internal landscape of my present, my joy, my relationships, my intuitive guidance felt barren, constantly awaiting for a better future. This often came from focusing entirely on the outcome and not the process itself, where most of life is. a continuously chain of nows, so to say, where every experience, even the future ones, unfolds. I also talk about this in my last video. By the way, I've also written more in depth on how discipline was my detriment in one aspect of life, but I haven't recorded that yet. But back to explaining the path of most resistance a bit more. Discipline is very connected to the path of most resistance, which in short means going against the wind because you decided on something. Like I said earlier, I was intrigued when I found a need for this path again in meditation. In contrast to my realization of having a bit of a one-legged approach in dealing with stress, namely only using the path of least resistance. Again, so intrigued, I wondered if this could be the path. What if I could be the hero and just do the most painful and hard things all the time? Couldn't that constantly lead me right by ensuring I do the most important tasks consistently as they show up? Playing that scenario forward in my head, I quickly ran into some problems, like I mentioned. This included the more obvious pitfalls of always going for the hardest, most scary things. Indeed, without any balance, this approach would be catastrophic, potentially leading to dangerous decisions due to an ability to differentiate between fear signals that warn you from genuine threats and those who merely indicate growth opportunities. So that's when the thoughts of the famous balance naturally snapped me back. Not slapped. Not this, but this. Or like this. The imbalance of choosing only one of the extremes is that we become one-legged or one-eyed, however you want to paint it, or one-sided. It's a natural learning process though, like in all things. First tipping fully to one side of the scale, and then swinging completely over to the other side, until, hopefully, you find yourself wise enough from both experiences to achieve balance. One of the best lessons I've had of this actually was when I played a video game called Skyrim. It's a game where you play your own fantasy warrior/adventurer and help a beautiful yet scary world with all kinds of problems using your preferred fighting style. You can affect the story based on your actions and decisions, and it can be quite immersive at some times. However, there is this particular storyline in where you can choose to join the army. The province of Skyrim is at open war, and you can, if you want, decide to choose a side of the war. I did that. And I chose a side first, joined the Stormcloak, they were called, Rebellion, first, because they seemed slightly more on the correct side of things. And I felt confirmed in that choice when I played along through their quest line and understood their side of the story even more, their side of the history. They had so many strong points, and it felt more right than ever to go and kill the Imperials on the battlefield. But when I later created a character and to just for fun join the other side of the war, the Imperials, the lesson came. I started to believe that they were right. Their points were so good, and their way of framing the side of history made so much sense now. And before I knew it, I was ready to fight for them now, against my former allies. I thought, wait a second. This must be what my dad meant when he said when I was little, that people tend to vote for whatever their parents vote. A clear example of this susceptibility to influence. Grow up in any culture and you will likely adopt the beliefs of your surroundings. Surround yourself in any circumstance with people for long enough and you will likely adopt their beliefs. We are not that rational from the outset. So from having been on both sides, I could now have a more balanced opinion on the conflict. I could see both sides and make less biased judgments. And this goes for everything. Some other teaching experience from the pendulum swings that I've had are being both vegan and carnivore. sugar junkie and no sugar dude, environmentalist and capitalist, fully strict planner, full intuition, globalist, and patriot. And on globalism, John Lennon's Imagine was something I would have sworn by. Then totally local stuff would have been something I'd sworn by. But the balance lies somewhere in the middle, as always. A completely globalized world has huge problems, and a completely isolated world made of only tribes and no global trades and collaborations has also huge downsides. Having swung on the pendulum to both sides has made me aware of that the people on the opposite side of an opinion aren't as stupid as you'd assume. And it's made me wiser myself. For example, I no longer assume my source is the only valid one. When we remain on one side, whether it's our initial or the one we swung all the way to, and believe they are not in the know because we are essentially stuck in the early stages of perspective. But until a balanced perspective is achieved, it will always be very flawed. So when it comes to today's topic, this happens when we are stuck on one side of either the path of least resistance or the path of most resistance. We are not here to avoid everything we fear, but also not here to face everything we fear. That implies a classic third hidden pathway, the path of balanced resistance. Having explored the limitations of a one-sided approach, whether it's constant ease or unyielding grit, the truth becomes clear. It's just like in Skyrim's civil war. Neither extremes leads to lasting peace or progress. The solution to war requires compromise. In this war of opposites, only doing what's easy versus only doing what's hard, the path forward is to let go of the desire to conquer the other's side. This brings us to the path of balanced resistance, where mutual dependence ensures neither extreme dominates. Great. The next step is starting to trade some, to become mutually dependent on each other, to ensure no incentive to invade one another. So what do these two sides trade each other? A little bit of this and a little bit of that. You will see. I'm hinting at this in these 3 following examples. 1. I was taking extra lessons in ice hockey when I was 12 at a place called Sweden Hockey Institute, where they taught deeper skill and technique for a fee. One thing I remember was a trainer who said, when discussing stick technique and hitting, the most advanced players have the skill of being relaxed all the way until just 1 split second before getting a hit. So, example 2, 15 years later, training Thai boxing, I learned from my teacher that punches would be more efficient if we first tightened our fists right before contact, remaining relaxed both before and after the strike. It also saves energy. The best fighter is never angry. Lao Tzu. And example 3, 100-meter sprinters relax their faces. They relax their jaws and shoulders in order to have better speed. So, camp least resistance trades relaxation to camp most resistance. Ice hockey, Thai boxing, and sprinting seem on the surface to be activities where you have to walk the path of most resistance in able to succeed. Grit your teeth all the time to push harder. Some play like that, but they're not succeeding in their activities. That's why you see why psychologically it can be very hard to be scored against you in football or hockey, because then you're not as relaxed most of the times. You try to push harder and it just gets worse. And that's why success can snowball when you have confidence, because you can relax more. So camp most resistance trades grit to camp least resistance. If, on the other hand, you're relaxing all the time on the ice, in the boxing ring, or relaxing your whole body on the sprinting track, you would break when hit by another player, likely break your wrist when hitting someone, and fail to generate any top speed through your muscles. In the wrong way, all activities that you can think of commonly contain a mix of both release and tension. For example, breathing. Lungs expand, tension, and exhaling emptiness, release. Singing. The voice strains to hold a note, tension, then drops or resolves, release. Dancing. The body tightens into a move, tension, then flows or collapses into the next, release. Laughing. Pressure builds in the chest, tension, and bursts out in sound, release. Crying. Emotional holding, tension, tears breaking free, release. Stretching. Muscles pulled, tension, then relaxing deeper, release. Weightlifting. Strain against gravity, tension, lowering and resting, release. Storytelling. Conflict builds, tension, resolution satisfies, release. Music. Dissonance or build up, tension, harmony or drop, release. Comedy. The setup creates anticipation, tension, and the punchline flips it, release. Meditation. Resisting distraction, facing pain, tension, letting go into presence, release. This fundamental interplay of tension and release isn't just physical or artistic. It's the very blueprint of psychological and emotional well-being, and it is the key to mastering the path of balanced resistance. Bluntly, when someone fails anywhere, in any situation or activity, it's because there is an imbalance. Too much or too little of any side. It is quite obvious in straightforward, concrete activities, but the subtlety is often lost when it comes to today's topic of psychological balance. Many think life would be better, for example, if the opposite political party didn't exist, a notion that is often untrue. Political parliaments become balanced when different opinions prevent policies or governance from going too extreme. If there were only right-wing parties in a country or in the world, some might argue there would be no welfare. And if there were only left-wing opinions in the world, the concern might be no individual freedom. Furthermore, if the world was fully prevented from evil, sadness, pain, or ugliness, there would be no good, happiness, pleasure, or beauty. Without contrast, anything becomes a neutral nothingness. The best tales that we love are those with a big problem, leading to a possible big solution through a big heroic journey. We also love seeing transformation, seeing someone going from good to bad, pain to pleasure, or sadness to happiness. Makes our hearts sing and inspires us too. None of that would even be possible given only one side of the coin in any area. If this balance is so fundamental, why do we constantly seek extreme sides? Why is just achieving balance often so easy to say, but not easy to do? It's because we're often stuck in early stages of awareness, held by at least 7 subconscious reasons. 1. It feels simpler to grasp. Balance is nuanced and demands constant adjustment, while extremes are clean, absolute, and easy to cling to. 2. Identity boost. Extremes give people a tribe and a sense of certainty. I am all in, this is who I am. Balance feels less dramatic, less heroic. 3. Emotional payoff. Extremes offer intensity, rage, enthusiasm, euphoria, which can be addictive compared to the quieter satisfaction of balance. Fear of ambiguity. Balance lives in the grey, and many people would rather be right in a black and white than wrestle with the discomfort of complexity. 5. Cultural reinforcement. Modern culture rewards extremes. Hot takes, radical transformations, all or nothing challenges because they're louder and more marketable. 6. Short-term clarity. In chaos, an extreme feels like a life raft. People lock onto it even if it eventually becomes a cage. 7. Ego. Extremes let the ego feel powerful, superior, or morally pure. Balance often feels humbler, which is harder for the ego to accept. Balance is where the real strength and wisdom lives, but to a beginner, it can look boring compared to extremes. When someone quits an addiction, they must have enough courage to sacrifice their extreme highs and lows, because there is no extreme high without an extreme low in addiction. This requires faith that the gray quality of life will slowly increase, eventually surpassing their previous peak experiences of extreme pleasure and pain, but in another way. They must have faith in another person's experience, like me in this case, can verify that their old graph of happiness or quality of life will be replaced by a new one, operating on a profoundly different level or fulfillment. Think of the ancient tantric spiritual practices, where peak climax isn't the sole purpose. Instead, the mastery lies in the sustained journey of sensation without a tense singular goal, but rather an attuned balance between tension and release. And this allows for a deeper, ever-rising pleasure, a subtle, profound satisfaction that's hard for someone fixated on the extreme peak response. It's a very good parallel for balanced resistance, trading the sharp spikes of extreme effort or extreme ease for a fulfilling continuous flow. The same is true, for example, for quitting sugar. It may seem like, what? Should I live a grey life without taste? But with practice, you will see that not only does it help with your overall health and energy, it will also start making everything else you eat taste much better, because your senses will no longer be dulled. I get it. Most people don't believe it will ever get easier, because when they've tried to face something hard, like quitting an addiction or facing their inner pain in meditation, it's looked like this left chart. But give it more time and it will look like this right chart. I drew this for what this video is mainly about, namely what it looked like for me when I realized I could balance the two paths of resistance in meditation and practice that, resulting in stress gone. But it holds a pattern of truth when it comes to quitting things too. Before I learned this and didn't face myself twice a day like so, it looked more like this. But now it looks more like this. Mostly. It's not a straight line like that, but you get my point of it. Face the discomfort regularly, voluntarily, and there's nothing there breathing you in the neck randomly during the day. So yes, consciously achieving balance takes the most courage and faith in a new kind of satisfaction. In other words, the satisfaction or a high that doesn't come from a kick is something you have to believe in before you experience it yourself many times, because it takes a little time to reach in the areas where you have just avoided pain and sought pleasure in. It also takes additional courage to know when to tense and when to release in any activity. Sometimes it's ease that challenges us, and sometimes it's the grit that feels like it's the bad side, requiring courage to apply. But doing so gives you the most freedom and holistic well-being possible. This is actually a huge topic, and once learned, you can apply it to any area where you become aware of an imbalance through noting your black and white thinking. And the benefits are vast. Here are some. Reduced stress and burnout. You stop pushing yourself too hard and stop escaping discomfort, which keeps your nervous system steadier. More emotional resilience. You learn to face pain and fear directly without being consumed by them. Deeper self-love, because you practice both sides actively, improving your state and accepting it as is. Clarity in decision-making. You can tell the difference between real no's, things misalign with you, and false no's, fear or discomfort trying to trick you. Freedom from black and white thinking. You stop getting trapped in extremes and gain the wisdom of perspective. Stronger discipline without rigidity. You can follow through when it matters, but without disconnecting from your inner compass. Greater joy and presence. By blending relaxation with grit, life feels more whole, less like a grind or an escape. Better relationships. Balance helps you keep commitments without over-sacrificing, making you more trustworthy and grounded. Long-term growth. Extremes burn out fast, but balance creates sustainable progress. A deeper sense of meaning. You realize life isn't about avoiding pain or chasing struggle, but learning how to walk both paths wisely. I'd also say this is how we become true heroes, capable of pursuing everything that serves and wisely addressing everything that challenges. Do you desire something, yet feel afraid to pursue it? Now you can activate face everything mode, walking the path of most resistance until that fear is integrated. For instance, if you feel drawn to a significant opportunity, but hesitate, you're no longer paralyzed by passivity. You possess the driver's license for an automatic vehicle of life, skilled in handling two pedals simultaneously. First, you release gas, brake, entering a relaxed state to truly listen to your desire and confirm its alignment. Then when fear kicks in, you press the gas, heeding that inner calling by facing your exact pain or fear directly and drives towards it. As fear decreases, it always does when facing it, you ease off the gas. Eventually, you overcome your fear in that area and come to a stop, engaging the handbrake and chill out, at least until the next desire appears with a clear path forward. It's a matter of a calibrated mixture of the right amount of gas and the right amount of brake in your life vehicle. We can accelerate towards anything to reach what we and the world truly needs and desire without risking our lives or those of others because of our braking ability. We know when to tense and when to let go, just like a pro athlete or pro anything. This means continually asking yourself, 1. Am I avoiding essential discomfort? Or 2. Am I rigidly pushing past my intuitive limits? And then adjusting the gas and brake accordingly. We no longer get tricked into fighting for any one-eyed or one-legged or one-sided side. Life can become rewarding in every given moment, offering ever-increasing rewards of true health and peace, without being solely focused on an end goal or instant gratification. This is our inherent capability. Later that day, new circumstances had accumulated some new stress in me again. So that evening, I sat down to meditate again, this time loaded with new strategy. I didn't just try to avoid stressful thoughts by emptying my mind or moving my body in search for peace, nor did I only seek out the pain or discomfort, pushing myself extremely. Instead, I allowed for a little give and take, a little trade, letting my intuition handle the gas and the brake. When it felt like, hey, now you're just avoiding this, I pressed the gas, facing the pain with presence. And when it felt like, hey, now you're just maxing out somewhere, I let go. The stress dissolved, and I felt like I had leveled up, defeating one of the monsters standing in my path. And this is how extreme discipline in self-growth can go hand in hand with extreme well-being and happiness, balancing each other out, drawing on each other's strengths, and admitting one's each weaknesses. We're not here to avoid or blindly face everything we're afraid of. What makes life so perfectly hard and deeply rewarding is that when we get this balance right, it becomes an endless upside with actually no downside, because then we are sort of love soldiers of heart, courageous in our authenticity, discerning in our actions, and capable of navigating life's complexities with grit and grace, carrying out and succeeding in only the missions that truly matters to us. So what are your experiences with with any of this? Anything you want to share, feel free to do so. Share your comments or thoughts in the comments, or email me, or look me up on other social medias. And if this resonated with you, consider liking this and sharing it with someone who might need to hear it. Yeah.